As time goes by, it's easier for misinformation, misunderstandings, and myths to become more commonly accepted, particularly when even the current developers behind Tomb Raider, Crystal Dynamics, happily shitstir about Lara Croft's history. Here are some of the really strange and baffling assumptions about her that I come across way too often. Bearing in mind, this is about classic Lara, so from Tomb Raider 1 to Angel of Darkness, meaning Legend onwards is irrelevant. The myth? She's overly perfect and flawlessly just backflips her way through any situation. The reality? Classic Lara was short-sighted, reckless, and a borderline klutz. She would not gracefully land on her feet all the time in the face of danger, literally or metaphorically. Last Revelation was fully about Lara instigating the apocalypse because she was so single-track-mindedly fixated on finding the shiny thing that only later, when reading its inscription, did she realize, oh shit, I've set in motion the end of the world. To be accurate, throughout the games, she was constantly crashing into things, tripping, tumbling, and falling over, so much so that there's too much footage for me to even show here. In all the games except Last Revelation, she gets captured and has all her weapons taken away. When Lara stealthily climbs onto Natla's yacht for the first time, she stumbles. And when she climbs onto it a second time later in the game, she stumbles again. While there were just as many badass times where she'd gained the upper hand, there is a bizarre Mandela effect where people only seem to remember those times. The myth? She's an over-sexualized object and uses her looks to her advantage. The reality is one must distinguish between marketing Lara and the Lara that actually appeared in the games. In advertising, sex salesmen, and in the 90s, that mentality was applied to Lara to an, in my opinion, tasteless degree. Even though she was never actually sexualized in the games themselves. Sure, she was designed to be hot, but when you're designing a character, why wouldn't you make them hot? But that's not the same as being over-sexualized, and Lara certainly never used her looks to get ahead. The reason she has short shorts, big tits, and a big ass is because when the graphics were so bad, they had to exaggerate certain features to show this is a female amongst almost every other game having a male lead at the time. Regardless, women come in all different shapes and sizes, which is great, but sometimes people conflate realism with smaller tits and ass, which is horrifically discriminatory against well-endowed women because it suggests they're not realistic, when women like that do exist, and that's fine. I will concede that the CGI model was a piss take, but core design toned it down by Angel of Darkness by giving us, for all the game's flaws, a fan favourite look for Lara. She only became sexualized within the games themselves when Crystal Dynamics took, rebooted, and drastically overhauled her in Tomb Raider Legend, allowing unlockable bikinis, even as DLC in Underworld, having wetsuits that cover everything except her ass, and showing off her lace thong in a ripped evening dress that was horribly tacky even before she ripped it. Those that believe that classic Lara, though, was basically a sex object, have clearly never paid attention to the cutscenes in the original series, or they watched them with their eyes closed and their hands over their ears. The myth? She's an emotionless, stoic ice queen with no depth. The reality is that the technology at the time didn't really allow for facial expressions outside of the small handful of CGI cutscenes each game would have, where within those she'd frequently be cracking smiles. While she could be really bitchy and sarcastic, particularly in Tomb Raider 3 and Angel of Darkness, it was at least written in a funny, not an unlikable way, and only delivered to those who deserved it anyway.
Apart from the money, what do you want? Advice? A decent coat? Deodorant?
Plus, in Angel of Darkness, most of the bitchy lines are ones you can choose her to say, so sometimes it's more representative of the player than Lara.
You unsavory little runt.
You have a nasty mouth, lady.
The rest of the time, she was perfectly pleasant, even being reasonable and apologetic to her enemies.
I'm sorry. This piece, you say? Where's the rest?
Classic Lara was never threatening to anyone who didn't present themselves as an enemy, such as the Tibetan monks in Tomb Raider 2, the Australian soldiers in Tomb Raider 3, and the Egyptian soldiers in Tomb Raider 4, all being your allies, among other friends she has. She even went as far as to offer to help an injured victim.
Listen, we'd better get you out of here. Do you know how the tribe crossed the swamp down there?
Multiple times. But no, even some fan films present her as being a constantly moody, stuck-up bitch with a chip on her shoulder, but that just isn't accurate. Honestly, I think Angelina Jolie summed her up pretty damn well here.
She's very emotional. She's curvaceous and she's feminine and she doesn't compete with other women. She's not that kind of woman. She's not the kind of woman other women compete with or don't like, even though you'd think she would be, because that's how maybe there's been a perception of her. But she's really not. She's not, and she's not hateful of men. She's not trying to be a man. She's not trying to compete with men. She's not in there because she wants to prove a point.
When it comes to the infamous Tomb Raider 3 helicopter pilot scene, the context is that Lara was just earlier being shot at with guns and flamethrowers by Willard's mercenaries, so she was hardly going to take the risk of this guy not being just another mercenary. In terms of other emotions on display, she was not emotionally bulletproof. She had her vulnerabilities, such as getting overwhelmed.
Jean, I'm tired. Give a girl a break.
To the point of seemingly even just giving up entirely, and I do mean entirely. She could also be coy.
What's a man gotta do to get that kind of attention from you?
It's hard to say exactly, but you seem to be doing fine.
And she'd even show concern and help a complete stranger, a stranger of which had locked her up, but Lara forgave that because she realized he had just been duped.
This is my gift to your child. I release you to a future beyond this dying vessel.
And my gift to you?
Combine this with the backstory featured in the Tomb Raider 1 manual of her parents disowning her for wanting to live a life of adventure, which is for her to be her authentic self regardless of anyone else. I'd say she certainly did have depth. The only issue is that in the 90s you are reasonably expected to read the manual, so you have to factor in that context, and with the relative infrequency of cutscenes or graphics capable of portraying emotions, some of her depth got masked, but it is there. But that is that. I just wanted to provide a more accurate angle on her compared to what is often baselessly and falsely assumed. Hopefully it was clarifying and or entertaining, but thank you so much for watching.